Hello. People who talk the most about loyalty are usually the first to betray it. My wife built her entire personality around being the perfect wife, always criticizing others for their failing relationships. Turns out, the only person she should have been judging was herself. I never thought of myself as a man who would be blindsided. I like to believe that I was observant, that I could read between the lines. But when you trust someone completely, you don't go looking for cracks. You believe the love you've built is real, solid, unshakable. And that's exactly how Olivia had shaped our marriage. A perfect image, a flawless structure. One that made me believe I had nothing to question. Olivia and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. We had what seemed like a stable, respectable life. I had a good job, one that allowed us to live comfortably. She worked part-time as a freelance designer, which gave her the flexibility to manage the house and stay involved in every little social gathering she could. She was the kind of person who thrived on perception. She wanted people to see her as the ideal wife, the kind that every woman envied and every man wished he had. She was outspoken about her morals, always quick to call out infidelity in others. If she heard about a coworker cheating, she would go on long rants about how disgusting and weak people were. She pitted women who stayed with cheaters, claiming they lacked self-respect. It became a personality trait, her unwavering stance against betrayal. Looking back, I should have seen it for what it was. People who are guilty often scream the loudest about their innocence. At first, I didn't think much of her possessiveness. Olivia liked control. It started in small ways. She planned every vacation, every dinner, every holiday with meticulous detail. She was the one who managed our calendar, scheduled our social life, and made sure everything was done her way. I let her because it never seemed like a problem. If anything, I admired her ability to keep things running smoothly. Then, the control shifted toward me. It began with innocent curiosity. She would casually ask about my day, who I had spoken to, what I had for lunch. Normal things a spouse might ask. But over time, it became more pointed. She started asking about specific coworkers. If I mentioned a woman's name, she would pause, repeating it back as if she was mentally filing it away. If I was 5 minutes late coming home, she wanted an explanation. If I ran into an old friend at the grocery store and it happened to be a woman, she suddenly wanted to know every detail about the conversation. It wasn't immediate, but gradually, I noticed that she always had this undercurrent of suspicion, like she was waiting for me to slip up. At first, I laughed it off, reassuring her when she brought up ridiculous concerns. I had never cheated on Olivia, never even considered it. In my mind, there was nothing to hide, and her paranoia was just insecurity that would fade over time. But it didn't fade. It escalated. She started checking my phone, not just glancing at my notifications, but going through it when she thought I wasn't paying attention. If she saw a female name pop up, she would ask questions, even if it was a coworker or a friend I had known long before I met her. She went through my emails, looked at my call logs, even checked my bank statements to see if I had any unexplained charges. I never stopped her. I had nothing to hide. If looking through my messages gave her peace of mind, I figured it wasn't worth the argument. But deep down, it unsettled me. Because no matter how many times she checked, she never seemed satisfied. One night, while we were out at dinner with friends, one of the guys mentioned how a mutual friend had been caught cheating. Olivia immediately launched into one of her famous speeches, shaking her head in disgust, calling the guy pathetic, saying she had no idea how women could be so stupid to stay with a cheater. Everyone at the table laughed, agreeing with her, but I noticed something different. There was a fire in her eyes. Not just anger, but something else. She wasn't just disgusted by cheaters. She was obsessed with them. After that night, I started noticing patterns I had never thought to question before. She had a way of always shifting the conversation toward infidelity, even when it wasn't relevant. If we were watching a movie where a character cheated, she would pause to dissect it, analyzing the signs, as if she was studying a case file. If a friend's relationship ended, she would immediately assume cheating was involved, even if that wasn't the reason. She would joke, half-joke, about me cheating, dropping little comments like, "Well, I assume you were actually at work today," or, "I'm sure you and your cute coworker had a great lunch." She said it playfully, but there was always something underneath. a sharpness that made me feel like I was constantly being tested. I reassured her every time. I reminded her that I had never given her a reason to doubt me. She always smiled, acted like I was being sweet, then changed the subject. But no matter what I did, the accusations, subtle or direct, never stopped. Then, she did something I never expected. One night, I was looking for my earbuds before heading to bed. I checked the usual spots: nightstand, living room, even the kitchen counter. When I couldn't find them, I checked her nightstand, thinking maybe I had left them there. That's when I saw it. A phone. Not her phone. Not the one she carried with her every day. This was different. An older model, one I didn't recognize, tucked beneath a stack of books like it wasn't meant to be found. My first instinct was confusion. Why would she have a second phone? Then, something deeper crept in. I hesitated for a long moment before picking it up. My pulse pounded as I powered it on, watching the screen light up, my stomach tightening. And then, I saw the messages. Endless conversations. Long threads of texts from an unsaved number. Messages that started harmless, but quickly became something else. Plans. Meetings. Talks of secrets. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the phone heavy in my hands. My mind raced through every interaction, every time she had accused me of something I never did. She had spent months, years, obsessing over loyalty, because she was the one who had none. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, my heartbeat steady, my hands surprisingly calm. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because now, I wasn't just going to find out the truth. I was going to watch her lie to my face, knowing that this time, I was the one with the secret. I didn't confront Olivia right away. That would have been too easy, too impulsive. And, if I knew my wife as well as I thought I did, it would have given her time to come up with an explanation, some twisted version of reality where she played the victim and I was the fool for ever doubting her. No, I needed more than just a handful of messages. I needed the full picture. So, I pretended nothing had changed. I went about my days the same way I always had: work, home, dinner, weekends with friends. I kissed Olivia good morning, held her hand when we went out, asked her about her day. And all the while, I was gathering evidence. The second phone had been my first real lead, but I didn't dare take it or go through too much at once. If she noticed it was missing, or if she suspected I had been snooping, she would cover her tracks. Instead, I started paying attention in ways I hadn't before. Olivia had always been meticulous about her routines, which made her habits predictable. She still checked my phone whenever she thought I wasn't paying attention, still made snide remarks about my coworkers, still pretended like I was the one with something to prove. But now, I saw through it. The more I watched her, the more obvious it became. She would disappear for hours under the guise of errands that shouldn't have taken more than 30 minutes. She spent more time in the bathroom, always taking her phone with her, always careful to keep it out of sight. She was affectionate, but in a way that felt forced, as if she was playing the role of the devoted wife rather than actually being one. And then there were the gaps, the missing pieces in her stories, the moments where she hesitated just a second too long before answering a question, the way she would change the subject if I asked about her day in too much detail. She thought she was being careful. She wasn't. One night, after she had fallen asleep, I checked our shared bank account. Olivia and I had always had a transparent financial system. No hidden credit cards, no secret stashes of money. Or so I thought. Scrolling through the statements, I found charges I didn't recognize. They weren't large purchases, nothing extravagant that would have caught my attention right away. But they were there, small, frequent transactions at restaurants I had never been to, rideshare payments that didn't match anywhere she had told me she'd gone, hotel charges under generic business names. I cross-checked those dates with times she had gone out with friends or needed some space. It lined up too perfectly. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was methodical. I copied everything: screenshots of transactions, dates, locations. I took photos of the second phone in case she tried to wipe it clean. I saved every piece of data into a folder on my personal drive, labeled with a name so boring she would never think to look for it. And then, I started looking for the other man. I knew there had to be someone. No one hides a second phone unless they have someone they don't want to be traced back to. But Olivia was careful, There were no names in the messages, just a number with no contact attached. I copied it and ran a simple search. And there it was. The number belonged to Ryan, a guy Olivia had mentioned once in passing, an old work friend, someone she had supposedly lost touch with years ago. I had no reason to question it at the time, but now, his name sat on my screen like a ticking bomb, waiting to go off. I kept digging. Ryan wasn't just some casual fling. Based on the messages, this had been going on for a long time. And worse, Olivia had brought him into places that should have been sacred. She had met him at our favorite restaurant, the one where we had celebrated anniversaries. She had taken him on weekends where I had been busy with work, telling me she was visiting her sister. And the worst part? There were mentions of me. Jokes about how oblivious I was. How easy it was to keep me in the dark. How she had me trained to never question her. That was the moment the anger finally hit. Not because she had betrayed me, but because she had enjoyed it. Because she had turned me into a joke, into someone she laughed about while lying next to me in bed. I put the phone down, exhaling slowly, steadying my pulse. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to confront her in some dramatic showdown. I was going to let her keep digging her own grave. And when the moment was right, when she least expected it, I was going to watch as everything she thought she had built came crashing down. The next few days passed in a blur, but not because I was unsure of what to do. No, I was focused, sharp. Every move Olivia made, every excuse she gave, I watched with cold precision. I had already caught her, already seen the proof of her affair with Ryan, but I wanted more. I wanted to see just how far she would take it. Then, something happened that I didn't expect. Olivia changed. She became nicer. It wasn't the usual forced affection, the kind she put on display when we were around family and friends. It was different. She started cooking my favorite meals again, asking about my day like she genuinely cared. She initiated intimacy for the first time in months. At first, I thought she was just trying to throw me off, to keep me distracted while she continued sneaking around. But then she did something that shook me more than anything else. She blocked Ryan's number. I had been checking her burner phone every night while she slept, and suddenly, the messages stopped. No more late-night meetups, no more plans, no more inside jokes at my expense. I thought maybe Ryan had ended things. Maybe he had grown tired of playing secret boyfriend. But when I checked her recent calls, I saw that she had been the one to cut him off. She had sent a final message before blocking him. This was a mistake. I need to fix things with my husband. I sat there, staring at the screen, my pulse slow and steady. This wasn't in the plan. I had expected Olivia to keep lying, to keep sneaking around. I had expected her to keep digging herself deeper until there was no way out. But this was something different. It wasn't guilt. I knew Olivia well enough to recognize that she wasn't remorseful. She was afraid. Of what? I wasn't sure yet. The next day, she suggested a weekend trip for just the two of us. Said we needed to reconnect, to spend time away from distractions. It was the exact kind of thing she should have done long before she ever thought about cheating. It was so perfectly timed that I almost laughed. She had no idea I already knew everything. That night, I went back through my evidence, scanning through messages, videos, and bank statements. I wanted to be sure, absolutely sure, that I had everything. And that's when I found something I had missed. A single message. Not from Ryan. From someone else. It was short, direct, and chilling in its simplicity. He knows. My stomach dropped. Who had sent this? Who else knew? I checked the timestamp. It had been sent the same day Olivia blocked Ryan's number. Had Ryan told someone? Had someone seen something? For the first time since this all started, I felt something close to unease. I wasn't the only one watching. Someone else was playing this game, and I had no idea what their next move would be. The message sat on the screen, taunting me. He knows. 2 words that changed everything. I had spent weeks playing this game, collecting every piece of evidence, watching as Olivia dug herself deeper into her deception. But now, I wasn't just the hunter. Someone else was watching. Someone else was involved. I scrolled through the message history, but there was nothing else. No follow-up, no response from Olivia, no indication of who had sent it. It wasn't from Ryan. I had already seen their last exchange. This was from a number I didn't recognize. Who else knew? And more importantly, why hadn't Olivia told me? I thought about confronting her, about shoving the phone in her face and demanding an explanation. But that would mean showing my hand. She still thought I was blind, still thought I was just the trusting husband she had manipulated for months. I wasn't about to give her an opportunity to rewrite the narrative before I had all the answers. Instead, I watched. And sure enough, Olivia started acting strange. She was still playing the role of the perfect wife, cooking meals, planning dates, trying to repair something she had already burned to the ground. But now, she was nervous. I caught her staring at her phone more often, even though she had already blocked Ryan. She jumped when I walked into the room unexpectedly. At night, she barely slept, tossing and turning beside me, gripping the sheets like she was waiting for something terrible to happen. She was scared. But of what? I needed more information. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called Ryan. I had no reason to think he would pick up, but I figured if anyone had answers, it was him. He had been the other half of this secret, the one Olivia had risked everything for. Maybe he knew something I didn't. The phone rang twice before going straight to voicemail. Then I tried again, and this time, the number was disconnected. A cold chill ran down my spine. People don't just disappear like that. Not without a reason. Something was wrong. I went back to the burner phone, scrolling through Olivia's messages again, looking for anything I might have missed. And then, buried between her old conversations with Ryan, I saw a name I hadn't paid attention to before. Ava. I clicked on the message thread, my heart pounding. It was another woman, someone who clearly knew about Olivia's affair. The messages were vague, but they had been talking for a while. Ava, you need to be careful. Olivia, it's fine. He doesn't suspect anything. Ava, you sure? Because men like him always find out. I scrolled further. Ava, Ryan is reckless. You're playing with fire. That was a month ago. Then, a week later. Ava, you need to end this. He's asking too many questions. And finally, Ava, he knows. I sat there, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Who was Ava? Was she a friend of Olivia's? Someone covering for her? Or was she someone Ryan had been involved with? I had been so focused on Olivia and Ryan that I hadn't considered that there might be others involved. That this web of lies might be bigger than just the two of them. And if Ava knew that I knew, then what exactly did Olivia think was going to happen next? For the first time, I wasn't sure if I was the one leading this game anymore. Because now, it felt like I wasn't just uncovering the truth. I was walking into something much, much darker. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something big. For weeks, I had been meticulously gathering evidence, thinking I had all the pieces to the puzzle. I had been so focused on Olivia and Ryan that I never once considered the possibility of a third player. But now, Ava's name sat on the screen in front of me like an unanswered question. Who was she? I ran a reverse search on the number. It wasn't registered to any social media, no linked accounts, no real name attached. Just another burner phone. That meant one of two things. Either Ava was as deep in the shadows as Olivia was, or she had a reason to stay hidden. I scrolled through the messages again, analyzing every exchange. She wasn't just a bystander. She had warned Olivia, told her to be careful, advised her to end things before it was too late. This wasn't the kind of conversation you had with a casual friend. This was someone involved. I needed to dig deeper. I went back through Olivia's emails, searching for anything that might lead me to Ava. It took a while, but then I found it. One email buried among hundreds. One that stood out because it wasn't a work contact, wasn't a subscription, wasn't anything I recognized. It was a forwarded message. Ava had sent something to Olivia, and when I opened it, everything clicked. Ava wasn't just some random woman. She was Ryan's wife. A slow realization settled over me, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. Olivia had been sleeping with a married man, and his wife had known about it. Not just known. She had been watching, just like I had. I scrolled further, my pulse pounding. Ava had forwarded Olivia screenshots, warning her that Ryan was getting reckless, that he was slipping up. But there was something else. One message from Olivia that made my stomach turn. You need to control him. If my husband finds out, I'll lose everything. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. She had been afraid this whole time, not because she felt guilty, not because she regretted what she did, but because she knew that if I found out, her perfect little life would be over. And she was right. I wasn't about to let her walk away from this unscathed. That's when I got an idea. I picked up Olivia's burner phone, the one I had found in her nightstand, and started searching through her contacts. And just like before, she had been sloppy. There, listed under a fake name, was another number. I ran it through a search, and this time, I hit the jackpot. It wasn't Ryan's. It was another man's number. My wife wasn't just having an affair with Ryan. She had been cheating on both of us. A slow, sharp-edged smile crept across my face. Olivia had no idea that I knew. But soon, she was going to find out in the worst way possible. And this new phone number? That was going to be the key to her downfall. I sat there for a long time, staring at the second number in Olivia's burner phone, the final nail in the coffin. She hadn't just been sneaking around with Ryan. There was someone else. Another man. Another betrayal layered on top of the first. I had been patient. I had watched, gathered every piece of evidence, let her believe she was in control. But now it was time to end this. I spent the next few days carefully setting everything in motion. I wasn't going to expose Olivia in some messy confrontation. No, I wanted something bigger. Something she couldn't escape, couldn't talk her way out of. I started by reaching out to Ava, Ryan's wife. She had known for a while, had tried to get Olivia to back off, but clearly that hadn't worked. I sent her everything I had, screenshots, bank records, messages from Olivia where she begged her to control Ryan. At first, she didn't respond, but when she finally did, it was just 2 words. Let's talk. We met at a small cafe, away from any place Olivia might accidentally walk into. Ava was composed, eerily calm, her eyes scanning through the evidence I had laid out in front of her. When she finally looked up at me, there was something dark in her expression. She wasn't just angry. She wanted revenge. And that was exactly what I was counting on. Ava had access to things I didn't. Ryan's emails, his work records, even his finances. Turns out, Ryan had a lot to lose, and so did Olivia. She had built a comfortable life off the stability I had given her, assuming she would never face any real consequences. So, we started planning. The first step was exposing Olivia to everyone she had deceived. I waited until the night of our anniversary, the perfect stage for her downfall. She had made reservations at an expensive restaurant, acting like she was suddenly invested in saving our marriage. She had no idea that I had invited some extra guests. When we arrived, everything looked normal at first. Olivia smiled at me, playing the role of the loving wife, completely unaware that the walls were about to cave in. Then, one by one, the guests arrived. Ava walked in first, taking a seat at a nearby table. Olivia tensed when she saw her, her eyes darting between us. She tried to keep her composure, but I could see the cracks forming. Then, Ryan walked in. And finally, the other man, the second number I had found in Olivia's burner phone. His name was Jake. He had no idea Olivia was married. And judging by the look on his face when he saw her sitting across from me, he was just as blindsided as I had been. Olivia's face turned pale. She tried to speak, but before she could, I pulled out my phone and played the first voicemail I had found. A message from her to Ryan, whispering about how much she needed him, how she couldn't wait to see him again. The restaurant went silent. Ava stood up, dropping printed screenshots onto the table. Messages between Olivia and Ryan, bank transactions, proof of their little rendezvous. Jake, the second guy, looked like he was ready to throw up. Turns out, he wasn't just some fling. Olivia had told him she was single. And then, for the final touch, I placed an envelope on the table. Inside, divorce papers. Already signed. Already filed. Olivia's hands trembled as she reached for them, flipping through the pages, realization crashing over her like a tidal wave. She opened her mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to explain, but I was already standing. I leaned in close, just enough so only she could hear me. You accused me for years. Turns out, you were just projecting. Then I walked out. By the time she got home, the locks had already been changed. Her bank account? Drained. Every dollar had already been moved. The house? listed for sale. I had made sure that she left with nothing. And as for Ryan, Ava made sure he lost everything too. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat back, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Olivia had spent years controlling everything, believing she was untouchable. Now, she had nothing. And me? I had my freedom. Bye-bye.